Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why different insecure attachment styles can exhibit manipulative behaviors. So I could do like a full video on each of these, but I'm just going to put like this whole video at a high level. I think it's really important to recognize, and I'm going to talk about like each of the different attachment styles, sort of manipulative patterns, if and when they do express them. And then I'm also going to talk about what to do if you find yourself on either end, as the person doing the manipulating, whether it's premeditated or not, and as the person who might feel like you might be being manipulated, and the symptoms to look for and some steps you can take to take action and break through this. I do have like a full 2-hour long webinar inside of the school about this stuff. We're still doing a sale to support everybody during the whole crazy COVID quarantine times. And I hope everybody's doing okay and hanging in. I know it's been sort of a long road. And I know we're heading back into fall time soon. And so I'm really hoping everybody's doing okay and not feeling too lonely or isolated. So I fully just lost my train of thought thinking about that. Okay, so the coupon code, if you want to join the school for 3-month, 6-month, or 12-month memberships, is with you, all one word. Link in the description box below. I'll put a card in this video as well. And we offer a money back guarantee if you use your courses and you don't find the content extremely, extremely helpful, because people overall are saying really, really fantastic things. And we're really excited about that. So let's talk about this. So first and foremost, what is manipulation? Well, manipulation has been defined by the dictionary as the usage of underhanded influence over a person, event, or situation in order to gain a desired outcome. And that's wonderful. Now, why is it happening? What's actually going on beneath the surface? Well, what I found pretty much 100% of the time is the reason people manipulate, and I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying manipulation is okay, but the reason people manipulate is because they have a need. The brain is a needs meeting machine. It's going to find any way to get its needs met. And they have belief systems about needs in general that make them think that they can't just go and ask directly. So usually this occurs in the form of, my needs don't matter to other people anyways. I will get punished for having needs. My needs will be rejected, dismissed, or ignored. Or people will make fun of me. I'll be unsafe. I'll be vulnerable. And that's not okay. Or people won't know how to meet my needs. So it usually falls under one of those categories. And you can probably hear, if you've been a visitor to this channel for a long time, I imagine you can probably almost hear which beliefs are associated with which attachment style, but we'll cover that. So basically, manipulation becomes a subconscious strategy to get a need met. It's like, if I can't go directly to get the need met, then I have to go in these roundabout ways, trying to gain underhanded influence over a person in order to gain the desired outcome, aka my need. So does this make it acceptable? No. Is it okay to be manipulated? No. Is it something that all people do at some point in their life? Yes, even secure people. I've seen it. I've had those conversations with those people. It's something that does take place from time to time. But the same pattern remains until people become masterful at communicating and asking and knowing their needs. They're probably going to have manipulative patterns of behavior left over. So what we have to be able to do is we have to look, if we are finding ourselves in a dynamic with somebody who's exhibiting manipulative patterns, we need to get really clear about a couple things. Number one, is this repetitive? Was this somebody who manipulated a one-off to like try to get you to go to the restaurant they wanted you to go to for dinner? And this is something that happens every 6 months with these like surface level things because they feel too vulnerable to ask and just say like, no, I really want to go to that restaurant. Or are we looking at like a pattern in a relationship of manipulation? And if so, you're going to see other patterns that coexist that are going to tell you this. And these are your red flags to leave. You're going to see force in a relationship, guilt tripping, emotional punishing, gaslighting, holding things over your head, and really making you feel unheard, confused, and diminished frequently. And if that's happening in a relationship, I am all for, like, I truly, truly, as a human being, after working with so many people and seeing the inside of so many people's lives, I 100% believe, with very, very, very few exceptions, things like psychopaths and actually having a smaller amygdala, like brain structure challenges, or um, different disorders that we can come into the world to, which are very, very few. I truly believe that the unhealthy patterns of behavior, the toxic things, the mean things, the things full of rage or anger or hatred that we see in other people are just a direct representation of how much trauma is unresolved in their subconscious mind and psyche. And that all bad stuff that we see, minus those very, very few exceptions, is pretty much rooted in just people and trauma. So it's innocent. Like at the end of the day, it's rooted in innocence. It's rooted in somebody who's so afraid to even express a need to share themselves. They believe that like they are so small and insignificant that that need won't get met, or it's not appropriate, or they've been rejected so many times around a need. So it's truly rooted in innocence, but it still doesn't make it okay. And so, what we have to be able to do as a human being is recognize, like, if we see these repetitive patterns, we want to have compassion for it. But that's not mutually exclusive to the compassion for ourselves. That doesn't mean we put up with it. We allow manipulation to be something we accept in relationships, and we allow it to violate boundaries, because then we've been compassionate to somebody else and we've been abusive to ourselves as a byproduct. And what we want to be able to do is be compassionate to that person, not, be spiteful or vengeful or mean, but to set a really strong absolute boundary and be able to be compassionate to ourselves simultaneously by walking away. So that's if you're seeing like repetitive patterns. And, another thing to look for is like, how strong is this stuff? Like, is this about like dinner? Is this about like who is buying what for grocery? Like, are these tiny things that you're noticing a manipulative pattern and it's spread out like very far apart? Or is this something that, they're big things like manipulating you about things that are really important to you, like what career you're in, or with, your finances and your savings? Like we have to get really clear. So just to be really clear about this, like my take is, if you see this as a pattern, it's not a healthy relationship. If somebody wants to, and sometimes we don't help somebody else by staying in that relationship either. Sometimes we have to actually leave the relationship and stop potentially enabling that person so that they can go recognize their patterns and heal and show up and do something differently. So, so I'll tell you like what to do, and then I'll tell you how it affects the three different attachment styles. So if you are the person feeling manipulated, and it's just like a one-off, okay, or it's something that's happening, it's very small and it's happening every so often. Number one, you have to know what you deserve ahead of time. You have to know as a human being what is okay with you and what are not. For example, I deserve respect as a person. I deserve consideration as a person. I deserve that if I have boundaries set, that they are seen, heard, understood, and respected. So you want to have like a list of what you deserve as a person really clearly, so that you have an intentional component that you can show up for, instead of just being on autopilot. Like, is this okay? Is this not okay? How do we know? Because we get really clear and conscious about it. And then we can set really strong boundaries as a byproduct of that. Then what we want to be able to do if we see something is we want to go and communicate a need directly. We have to be able to say, hey, I'm not sure what you meant by this, but this is my experience. This is not acceptable. This is not okay. Here's what I need instead. Do you have something that you would like to communicate directly? Do you have a need that you're not saying and not sharing? And this is what's leading to this roundabout thing that I see you doing. So we want to call it out. And then we want to be able to check in with self and check in with them. And we have to say, this isn't going to be okay in the future. And, I need you to be able to show up to create change here, because I don't accept any manipulative patterns. And what we really have to do, and I talk about this a lot in like one of our communication scripts course, in terms of if we see somebody violating a boundary that we've already set, we need to make sure we communicate consequences to actions. And this isn't a threat. And the fastest way to show somebody that it's not a threat is to tell them in advance. So what does that mean? Well, you might say to somebody, for example, I'm noticing that I saw you do something that felt manipulative to me. I might be confused, but I really need you to communicate directly, because I want you to know that that pattern is 100% unacceptable. I only put up with respect and kindness in relationships, and that didn't seem to be in alignment with it. And what I need from you is to know that I need direct communication and not to see any unacceptable manipulative strategies showing up in our relationship dynamic. And if you don't do that, I know for myself, I'm going to have to protect myself by moving back or pulling away in this relationship. And I'm not saying that as a threat or as a punishment. I'm saying that out of radical honesty because I want you to know how important this is to me. I want our relationship to work. I want us to have healthy habits. I don't want this to be something that comes between us. And if I hide that from you and I don't tell you how I'm feeling and what I know the natural consequences would be, then I'm not being fully authentic in the relationship. And so I like super long-winded that because I'm trying to give you all the little points in there when we talk about communication scripts. I actually wasn't planning on like sharing a script, but that's something you can do. And you're basically just hitting all these key points. And what you want to do if you see this and this is your experience, go back and watch that part and take the key points that apply to you. You don't have to take all of it. You can take more of it. You can expand those key points out if you really want to. But you want to be really clear about there is a consequence, and I'm not saying that as punishment or spite. I'm saying that specifically so that you know where I'm coming from. Okay, so that's really important to do. Now, how does the manipulation affect the different attachment styles differently? Well, sometimes dismissive avoidance can become manipulative in the sense that they will punish with distance. I want to be really clear, dismissive avoidants are not always punishing with distance. In fact, they rarely are. They will try to communicate, and if they feel like they've communicated, and sometimes they think they're communicating more than they are because sometimes they're used to seeing indirect communication or non-communication, which can make them feel like little things are big things because it feels like that for them relative to their experience. But what's really important to recognize essentially is that when a dismissive avoidant is sharing from their perspective about um, like this is what I'm needing, or whatever it is. If they feel unheard, then sometimes as a last resort, they can manipulate by becoming punishing and by creating distance, sort of out of spite to a certain degree, which would definitely constitute as a manipulative behavior. And so if that happens, I think I put out a script in a video recently that came from one of our courses about communication scripts, and it talked about what to do if somebody becomes passive aggressive or stonewalls. And you can use that script in that video. I'll link it as well in the box below, to be able to know how to overcome that and communicate about that. Okay. Next, anxious, preoccupied individuals. Sometimes they will manipulate through their protest behavior. Sometimes it'll be things like trying to make a partner jealous to see if there's a response. Maybe saying something to try to push the person away, but not meaning it to try to create a response. These things can be protest behaviors. They tend to happen in smaller doses because the deep underlying fear is like, I really don't want distance. So they'll do them at sort of like a high level. But that can be a form of manipulative behavior. And then fearful avoidance, when they don't get needs met, they can really push people, or they can threaten things in a relationship sometimes as a subconscious strategy to get the person to show up and do something. And again, that usually is rooted in somebody who's fearful avoidant, just fearing that they can communicate their needs, assuming that it's not possible, that they can't do it, there's no point. For anxious preoccupied, it's often, well, if I do communicate a need, I might be a burden. People might think I have, not a lot to offer and that I'm a big responsibility in a relationship, and then I could be abandoned or not good enough or rejected. And for dismissive avoidance, they usually feel like, well, people won't meet my needs anyways, so why bother? And that's when they can go about using manipulative patterns of behavior. So I hope this video wasn't too long. I hope this all makes sense to you guys. It's a really important topic, and it's definitely something to recognize is like coming from pain. But at the same time, we have to be really clear that just because we see that, it doesn't mean we should empathize or have compassion and then make it okay in relationship to ourselves. So we have to get really clear about the compassion and the boundary at the same time. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.